Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe. This channel tells real, true crime stories from the United States, stories that actually happened, stories that were hidden, and stories that deserve to be remembered. Every video is carefully researched, respectfully told, and created to keep these victim stories alive. If you want more true crime documentaries, real abduction cases, prison stories, and chilling investigations like this one, subscribe now and turn on notifications. New stories are posted regularly, and once you subscribe, you won't miss the next case that will make you stop, listen, and think. She stepped toward the car without fear. The engine was running, the headlights were on. The man inside smiled and said her name like he already knew her. She thought it was a ride home. That was the moment she disappeared. Within minutes, her phone went silent. No calls, no messages, no movement. The car pulled away into the dark streets, blending in with traffic like nothing had happened. No one screamed, no one chased, no one realized that a life had just been stolen. And somewhere in the city, a predator had claimed another victim. But what no one knew yet was this was not the first time, and it would not be the last. That night would become part of a terrifying pattern, a pattern that would shock America and expose one of the most dangerous abductors the country had ever seen. And by the time police understood what was happening, it was already too late. Hours earlier, everything felt normal. She was a college student, young, bright, independent, someone who had plans for the future and friends who trusted her judgment. That night, she went out with friends near campus. Laughter, music, harmless fun. Nothing felt dangerous. She did what millions of students do every weekend. She stayed out late, she talked, she smiled, she made plans for the next day. When it was time to leave, she did not feel scared. The streets were familiar. The area felt safe. She believed she had a way home. Then, a man appeared. He looked calm, friendly, clean-cut. He did not look dangerous. He spoke clearly. He sounded polite. He offered help like it was nothing. He said he could take her home. Witnesses would later remember how normal it all looked. No struggle, no fear, just a young woman getting into a car. That was the trick. The abductor knew exactly how to look safe. By morning, people began to worry. Her bed had not been slept in. Her phone still went straight to voicemail. Friends assumed she was resting or had stayed over somewhere else, but as hours passed, that hope faded. By afternoon, panic started to grow. Police were called, flyers were printed, her name was spoken out loud in worried voices. Officers searched nearby streets and wooded areas, but there were no signs of a struggle. No blood, no broken phone, no witnesses who saw anything wrong.
It was like she had vanished into the air. What investigators did not know yet was that this disappearance was not alone. Other young women had gone missing too. Different days, different places, but the same feeling followed each case. Gone without a trace. As police dug deeper, small details began to connect. Witnesses from different cases described the same type of man. Handsome, calm, well-spoken, someone who did not raise alarms, someone who asked for help or offered help, and always a car. One woman remembered seeing a man with his arm in a sling. Another remembered him asking for help carrying books. Another recalled him introducing himself by name, Ted. That name would soon haunt the country. Ted Bundy did not look like a monster. That was his power. He was a law student, a volunteer, a man people trusted. He blended in easily. He used charm like a weapon. He targeted young women because he knew they would trust him. He studied them. He waited. He chose moments when they felt safe. Then he took them. What made his crimes even more terrifying was how fast they happened. Seconds, minutes, no noise, no witnesses who understood what they were seeing. By the time people realized something was wrong, the victims were already gone. Police slowly began to see the truth. This was not random. This was not a single crime. This was a serial abductor moving through college towns, leaving grief behind and taking no responsibility. He crossed state lines, he changed tactics, he stayed one step ahead, and every disappearance added pressure. Parents stopped letting daughters walk alone. Campuses filled with fear. Women watched every car that slowed near them. The country was waking up to a nightmare. But the most chilling part was still unknown, because while police searched and families prayed, Ted Bundy was still free, still hunting, still perfecting his lies. And somewhere out there, another young woman would soon believe she was getting a ride home. The last confirmed sighting of her was simple: a car, a smile, a door closing. No one knew that moment would become history, and no one knew it would help uncover one of America's most disturbing abduction cases ever recorded. If you think this was the worst part of the story, it wasn't. Because what police would later discover about what happened after the car drove away would shock the nation. And the truth behind how long he had been doing this was even more terrifying. In the next chapter, the mask begins to slip, and the monster underneath finally comes into view. The arrest came quietly. No flashing sirens, no crowds, no one screaming his name. When police first put handcuffs on Ted Bundy, he did not panic, he did not fight. He smiled, he joked, he asked officers how their night was going. To the outside world, he still looked harmless. But inside interrogation rooms across the country, investigators were finally starting to understand something terrifying. The man sitting calmly in front of them was not just a suspect. He was the common link between disappearances that had haunted America for years. And the truth he was hiding was far worse than anyone imagined. By now, police had begun connecting cases across state lines. Young women, college campuses, late nights, short rides that never ended. Witness sketches looked the same, descriptions matched, cars were similar, even his name appeared again and again: Ted. At first, officers struggled to believe it. He did not fit the image they expected. He was educated, clean, soft-spoken, someone mothers trusted around their daughters. That made him even more dangerous. Because Ted Bundy understood one thing very well: people believe what they want to believe. As detectives questioned him, Ted denied everything. He spoke slowly, carefully. He corrected small details. He laughed at the idea that he could hurt anyone. When shown photos of missing women, he looked confused. "I don't know her," he said again and again. But outside the interview room, evidence was stacking up. Hair samples, fibers, witness statements, tire marks, a crowbar, a ski mask, handcuffs. Each piece alone seemed small. Together, they told a horrifying story. Behind prison walls, Ted began to reveal another side. Not through words, through control. He enjoyed watching investigators work. He enjoyed knowing they were close, but not close enough. He gave small hints, half-truths, confusing statements that led nowhere. He wanted attention. He wanted power. He wanted to feel smarter than everyone else. Families of the missing waited for answers while Ted played games. And every day without the truth felt like another crime. Then, something unexpected happened. Ted started talking. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to chill the room. He spoke about others. He spoke about mistakes. He spoke about places no one had searched yet. Investigators leaned forward. Families held their breath. America listened. But Ted never said everything at once. He wanted deals. He wanted time. He wanted to stay alive. And with each word, the picture became darker. Search teams were sent out. Forests, mountains, fields, quiet places where no one went. Places chosen carefully. What they found confirmed everyone's worst fears.
Remains. More than one. more than two. The disappearances were not accidents. They were not runaways. They were not single events. They were murders, and the number kept growing. As details came out, fears spread across the country. People asked the same question again and again. How could this happen so many times? The answer was simple and terrifying. Ted Bundy blended in. He learned how to look injured, how to ask for help, how to make women feel safe enough to get close. He understood kindness and used it as bait. He struck fast. He left no witnesses. He moved on, and for years, no one stopped him. The woman from the night she disappeared was finally understood as part of the pattern. The ride home, the silent phone, the car driving away. Investigators believed she never had a chance. Her case was no longer alone. It was one chapter in a long, brutal story. Courtrooms filled. Ted chose to represent himself. He spoke directly to the jury. He smiled for cameras. He tried to charm the world one last time. Some people still believed him. That may have been the most disturbing part of all. But behind the calm face, the truth was closing in. Witnesses testified. Evidence was shown. Survivors spoke. One woman described escaping him, running, screaming, living. Her voice shook the room. Ted Bundy was no longer just a suspect. He was a proven predator. As trials continued, investigators believed they still did not know everything. Not all victims were identified. Not all locations were revealed. Not all families had answers. Ted knew more, and he was still choosing silence. In prison, he waited. He waited for attention. He waited for fear. He waited for the moment when he could speak again. And when execution day drew closer, something changed. Ted began asking to talk, not to confess, not to apologize, but to control the ending. Because what he was about to reveal would shock even seasoned investigators. Places never searched, victims never counted, crimes never imagined. And the full truth about how many women disappeared into his car may never be known. What America thought was the end of the story was only the surface, because the most disturbing details of what happened after the abductions were still buried. And when Ted finally decided to speak, it would be on his terms. In the next chapter, the confessions begin, and the true scale of the horror finally comes into focus. Ted Bundy leaned forward and smiled. This time, he did not deny it. This time, he did not joke. This time, he said something that froze the room. "There are more," he said quietly. The air changed instantly. Investigators stopped breathing. Pens froze above paper. For years, families had waited for answers. Now, the man who had stolen them was finally opening the door to the truth, but he would not give it freely. Ted Bundy had learned something powerful. Time was his weapon now. He was facing execution. The clock was running out, and suddenly, he wanted to talk, not because he felt guilty, not because he felt sorry, but because he wanted control until the very end. He told investigators he would help. He said he could point them to bodies. He said he could explain how it all happened. Then, he stopped. He wanted delays, appeals, interviews, attention. Every confession came with a price. As the days passed, Ted began describing his crimes in pieces. Never full stories, never complete names, never exact numbers. He talked about dark roads, about quiet places, about moments when no one was watching. He talked about picking victims who were tired, trusting, alone. He explained how easy it was. That was the most terrifying part. Investigators compared his words with old missing person files, college students, teenagers, women walking alone at night, women who thought they were safe for just a moment. So many names suddenly made sense. So many disappearances were no longer mysteries. They were answers no one wanted. Families were called into rooms and told the truth. Some cried, some screamed, some sat in silence. For years, they had hoped their loved ones were alive somewhere. Now, hope was replaced with certainty, and certainty hurt more than questions. Ted spoke calmly when describing how he gained trust. He talked about smiling, about being polite, about saying the right words. He didn't look dangerous, he said, and he was right. That is why it worked. The woman from the night she disappeared was finally given a place in the story. Her last steps, her last choice,
her last mistake. Investigators believed she entered the car willingly. She believed the lie. She believed she would be home soon. She never was. Her phone went silent because she never had time to react.
As execution day came closer, Ted talked more. He described patterns, locations, numbers that made even experienced detectives look away. Some crimes were too brutal to explain fully. Some details were never released. America listened in fear. But even now, Ted Bundy was still holding back. He never gave a full list. He never said every name. He never told the exact number of victims, and he never showed real regret. On the day of his execution, crowds gathered. Some wanted justice, some wanted answers, some just wanted to see the end. Ted Bundy walked calmly. He spoke softly. He smiled one last time, and then it was over. But the story did not end with his death, because even today, investigators believe there are victims we still do not know about. Cars still pass quiet roads where answers may still be buried. Families still wonder if their missing loved one was one of them. The moment she disappeared changed everything. It exposed a truth America did not want to see. Sometimes danger does not look dangerous. Sometimes evil smiles. And sometimes a simple ride home becomes the last moment anyone ever sees you alive. If you think this story ends here, it doesn't. If you're still watching, it means this story matters to you. This channel shares real, true crime stories from the United States, cases that actually happened and deserve to be remembered. Subscribing helps this channel keep telling these stories with care, respect, and truth. If you want more real abduction cases, true crime documentaries, and stories that stay with you long after the video ends, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The next story may be one you've never heard before, because there are still questions Ted Bundy never answered, and there are still moments in his story that remain hidden in the dark. In the next chapter, we confront what America learned and what it still fears from one of the most disturbing abduction cases in history. The silence after his death was louder than any confession. Ted Bundy was gone, but the fear he created did not disappear with him. In the days after his execution, investigators sat in quiet rooms, staring at files that were still unfinished, names without endings, faces without answers. America wanted closure, but closure never came. When Bundy died, he took secrets with him. He never gave a full list of victims. He never revealed every location. He never explained every disappearance. What he left behind was a trail of pain that could not be neatly closed. Detectives reopened old files. Cases once marked as unsolved were now looked at again through a darker lens. Some disappearances suddenly fit his pattern too well. A young woman gone after a party, a student last seen walking home, a phone that went silent without warning. Each case raised the same question: was she one of his? Families were forced to live with uncertainty. Some were told their loved one was likely a victim, but there was no proof, no remains, no final moment to grieve properly, just a shadow that followed them through life. Others chose not to know, because knowing meant accepting a truth too painful to carry. Across the country, campuses changed. Self-defense classes became common. Safety escorts were created. Parents warned daughters about rides from strangers, even friendly ones. But the damage had already been done. Ted Bundy had changed how America understood danger. Evil was no longer something obvious. It did not hide in dark alleys. It did not always look threatening. Sometimes it wore a smile and spoke kindly. The woman from the night she disappeared became a symbol, not just of loss, but of how fast life can change. One decision, one moment of trust, one car door closing. That was all it took. Her story was shared again and again, not to scare people, but to warn them, because what happened to her could have happened to anyone. Years passed, but the story never faded. Books were written, documentaries were filmed, new generations learned his name, even if they never wanted to. And every time his story was told, the same feeling returned. How did no one stop him sooner? The answer was uncomfortable, because he did not look like a monster. Even today, law enforcement believes the full truth may never be known. Some remains were never found. Some victims were never identified. Some families are still waiting for answers that may never come. And that is the final cruelty of abduction. It does not just steal a life, it steals certainty, it steals peace. The moment she disappeared was not just the end of her night. It was the moment America realized how fragile safety really is. A moment that forced the country to look closer, to question trust, to understand that danger does not always announce itself. This case is remembered not because of him, it is remembered because of them, the women who never made it home, the voices that were silenced, the lives that were taken without warning. And somewhere, even now, there are still unanswered questions waiting in the dark. Questions that remind us why these stories must be told. Because forgetting is the last thing we can afford.
In the next chapter, we confront the legacy of this case, what it taught America, and why the moment she disappeared still matters today. The moment she disappeared never truly ended. It lives on in empty bedrooms, in unanswered phone calls, in families who still pause when they hear a knock at the door. Ted Bundy was executed, but the damage he caused did not leave with him. Because what he took was more than lives. He took peace. For many families, there was no body to bury, no grave to visit, no final goodbye. They were left with memories frozen in time, a smile, a laugh, a promise to be home soon. That promise was never kept, and the waiting never fully stopped. Law enforcement still carries the weight of what was missed. Looking back, investigators now see the signs clearly. The patterns were there, the similarities were real. But at the time, systems were not connected. States did not share information easily. Names and faces were locked in separate files. Ted Bundy used those gaps. He moved, he changed locations, he stayed ahead, and every delay gave him another chance to take someone else. Because of this case, everything changed. Police departments began sharing data. Serial offender profiling became more advanced. Missing persons cases were taken more seriously. Patterns were no longer ignored. The price of that progress was unbearable. It came too late for many. The woman from the night she disappeared is remembered not for how she died, but for how suddenly she was taken. She trusted, she believed, she stepped into a car thinking she was safe. That moment became a warning passed down through generations. Not to live in fear, but to stay aware. Today, parents teach their children lessons learned from this case. Do not trust a stranger just because they seem nice. Do not assume danger looks dangerous. Do not ignore your instincts. These lessons exist because of what happened, because of her. Ted Bundy wanted to be remembered. He wanted his name to last forever. But history chose something else. It chose to remember the victims, the women who never came home, the voices that were stolen, the moments that ended too soon. Still, questions remain. How many victims were there really? Where are the places no one ever searched? How many families are still waiting without knowing? Those answers may never come, and that may be the most disturbing truth of all. The moment she disappeared reminds us of something simple and terrifying. Life can change in seconds. A single choice, a single lie, a single ride home, and everything is gone. This story matters because it is real.
It happened in the United States. It happened to real people, and it could have been anyone. That is why it is told. That is why it is remembered. And as long as there are unanswered questions, as long as families still search for truth, the moment she disappeared will never truly fade. It will stay with us, watching, warning, waiting. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is the moment you believe you are safe. The story ends, but the warning does not. Long after the courtrooms emptied and the prison gates closed, the fear stayed behind. It stayed in quiet streets. It stayed on college campuses. It stayed in the minds of people who realized something important too late. Danger does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. The moment she disappeared taught America that lesson in the hardest way possible. People often ask how something like this could happen. How could so many women vanish? How could one man move so freely? How could trust be used as a weapon? The answer is uncomfortable, because he did not force his way into their lives. He was invited. Ted Bundy understood human kindness. He studied it. He copied it. He used it. He knew people want to help. He knew people trust faces that look familiar. He knew fear often comes too late, and that knowledge made him powerful. After his death, investigators reviewed everything again. Every note, every tape, every confession. They compared maps, they looked at old roads, they searched places that had been ignored for years. Some answers were found, many were not. There are still missing women whose names never made headlines.
Still families who wonder if the knock on the door will ever come. Still cases marked unsolved, waiting for something that may never arrive. This is the lasting damage of abduction. It does not end when the criminal is gone. The woman from the night she disappeared did not choose to become part of history. She chose to go home. That was all. She had dreams. She had plans. She had a future that ended because she trusted the wrong person for a few seconds. That truth is hard to face. But it must be faced, because telling these stories is not about fear. It is about awareness. It is about understanding that evil can hide behind kindness, that danger can wear a smile, that safety is something we must protect together. Today, her story is shared so others may pause, so someone may choose not to get into that car, so someone may listen to their instincts, so someone may walk away. If even one life is saved, the story has meaning. The moment she disappeared became a line in time. Before it, trust felt simple. After it, trust required thought. America learned that lesson together. This is where the story ends. Not with the criminal, not with the courtroom, not with the execution, but with remembrance. Remember the victims. Remember the warning. Remember that safety is never guaranteed, but awareness gives us power. And remember this above all else. Sometimes the most dangerous moment in your life is the moment you believe nothing can happen. Because the moment she disappeared can happen to anyone. And that is why this story will never be forgotten. If this story moved you, disturbed you, or made you think, please consider subscribing. Every video on this channel focuses on real American true crime cases, told clearly and respectfully, so these moments are never forgotten. Subscribing helps keep these stories alive and helps others discover them too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And if you haven't already, subscribe now for the next true crime documentary.
If there's any real true crime documentary you want us to cover, and you don't see it on this channel yet, let us know in the comments. We read your suggestions, and your ideas help decide which true stories we tell next.
Subscribe and stay with us as we continue sharing real crime stories that should never be forgotten.